Wow. Thank you very, very much, Jonathan. To me, coming to Mackinac is part of almost my family tradition. I just talked a few minutes ago to John Engler, and we were comparing notes on the many years that we worked together and the times I had come up here to be with Republicans and to be with the governor. And in the case of John Engler, we go all the way back to when he was the Senate Minority Leader. And I went to Lansing one day as a backbench congressman to do a training session for state legislators on a Monday morning. And after the breakfast meeting was over, he said to me, "You do know that most of these guys got in a car at 2 or 3 in the morning to drive here. And as a Congressman flopped, because you can't crisscross the country very easily by car. And it hadn't occurred to me that all of these state legislators had spent that many hours getting to Lansing. And I suddenly realized we had this great training opportunity because they were trapped in their cars. And so John and I invented the Go Pack training tape program, which at its peak was sending out 53,000 audio tapes a month to enable state legislators, candidates, activists to get educated across the whole country. And I once had the experience at a national convention of having a California state senator walk up to me with great pride and say, "I listened to your last tape 4 times driving to Tahoe and back." And to be honest, I thought, this guy is a little bit whacked. But so I start with Michigan and John Engler and years of friendship and years of hard work. Joan has been a very dear friend. Calista was telling me as we came across on the boat last night that her family came up here many years ago, parked the Winnebago, got on the boat, came over to see the island. So it's that kind of a long relationship, and I'm thrilled to be back here. I did Greta Van Susteren from the porch out here last night, and she immediately cued into it because she's from Wisconsin, and promptly asked me about fudge. So we are taking Greta some Mackinac Island fudge later on today to make sure that she stays happy. Let me say first of all that I am particularly proud to be here because you have in Saul Anusis one of the greatest state chairmen in Republican Party. His courage, his hard work, his determination is extraordinarily important. Let me also say that it's an honor to be here. I was just chatting a few minutes ago with Pete Hoekstra, an old friend of mine who's doing a great job on the Intelligence Committee. And he was, let me tell you, to be on the Intelligence Committee with the Democrats in charge of the House is a real struggle. I mean, just the term, Intelligence Committee. But I know I caused a little bit of a stir a few weeks ago when I was on Paul W. Smith's show, and I made some fairly obvious observations. And I want to start with it. I want to say up front, I'm going to spend part of this speech meddling. I realize I'm not from Michigan, but as an American citizen, I have an enormous interest in what happens to Detroit and what happens to Michigan, because this state is very important for the future of America. I'll give you a couple of pieces of data. In 1950, there were 1,800,000 people in Detroit, and it was the highest per capita income of any city in the United States. Now those are facts. And I want to start from there. But I want to give you a message of hope and a message of opportunity and a message that if we Americans pull together, we can make an enormous difference. And let me say something that may strike you as a little odd at a Republican meeting. I believe this country is totally tired of red versus blue automatic partisanship. a real effort to come together to create red, white, and blue solutions that are better for virtually all Americans. I think this is very deep. Drawing on my experience at working with Governor Reagan, candidate Reagan, President Reagan, developing over a 16-year period a plan to create a majority in the House, being chairman of GOPAC, ultimately being speaker and doing the contract with America. I've developed a program called American Solutions, which I want to urge all of you to take a look at. It's at americansolutions.com. On Thursday night, we're going to do a workshop from the Cobb Galleria in Atlanta, but it's going to be on the internet, so anybody who wants to anywhere in the world can pull it up for free. It's going to be on DirecTV and Dish satellite television. Joan has been a big help to us here, beginning to launch this, as have a number of other people across the state. And we're going to talk about ideas, and it's going to be bipartisan. We're going to have former Democratic Governor Romer of Colorado, who spent 6.5 years as superintendent of the Los Angeles school system and understands a lot about how hard it is to reform these big bureaucracies. And he's heading up Ed 08, which is an effort to get people talking about education reform, talking about rethinking the system. He's agreed to join us. On Saturday, we're going to have Elaine Kmark, who was the head of Gore's Reinventing Government. She's going to do a workshop on how to get rid of bureaucracy. And she's at Harvard now. We're delighted to have her. So it's a genuinely bipartisan effort. On Saturday, we'll have 4.5 hours of workshops from West Georgia University, but also we'll have Congressman Brian Bilbray from the border in San Diego talking about immigration, national security, and controlling the border. We are going to have David Barton of Wall Builders in Des Moines, Iowa, talking about rediscovering God in America, something which we have a book out, and plus then I have a DVD that will be out later on this fall that walks you through Washington and introduces you to all of our national monuments in the context of the degree to which our founding fathers believed in faith. We think I just mentioned to Saul that my hope is with this initial launch this year that by next September in 2008 we could have an even more effective series of workshops and could be in every single precinct in the state. And that's the first message I want to bring to you. This is a center-right country dominated by left-wing political organizations. But part of that's our fault. We as Republicans have an opportunity, and I think a duty, to reach out to every aspect of American life and to be prepared to talk to everybody in America. If we know, for example, that the Detroit school bureaucracy is failing, which it is, and we know that that failure is costing children a chance to go to college instead of to prison, which it does, then we as citizens ought to have an obligation to be in the middle of the community, talking about new solutions, new ideas, new approaches. Pointing out, for example, that Clark Durant, with his Cornerstone Schools, now has 1,100 students in school with a 94% graduation rate. And maybe they'll go up to that. But we also have to learn to communicate. And it's very important to understand, the great Republican communicator of the last 50 years was an FDR Democrat. The reason Ronald Reagan was such an effective communicator was he wasn't a Republican. You know, I talk to all sorts of Republicans who say, well, why would you talk to the news media? Why would you spend time learning how to be articulate? You know, as the party of management, we tend to think if it's good enough for the boardroom, why are those people too stupid to understand it? That's the opposite of our attitude. It is the duty of leadership to communicate with such clarity that the community understands where we have to go and what we have to do.